Welcome, and thank you for joining Launching Your VISTA Service. I'm Patrick Triano.
And I'm Calvin Landrum, and we'll be your host today at VISTA HQ in Washington, D.C.
This is the kickoff of the orientation to VISTA service that will span the next 5 weeks. So, to start us off, let's hear from VISTA's director, Max Feinberg. Max?
A very good afternoon and good morning for those all the way out far west. I am on just to say thank you and congratulations. Today is day one of what I hope becomes an amazing year in your lives of serving others, of using this opportunity as a volunteer in service to America to be an inspiration to others, to be a person who represents and embodies the best of what our country has to offer. So I wanted to just join at the kickoff of your VISTA service and this webinar to say thank you and to say I am grateful for the work that you will do in helping Americans, whether that's through affordable housing or education or providing meals or so many other things that you'll be engaged with. I am grateful, and I look forward to hearing more of the feedback of your service as you go forward, and hopefully I'll actually get to meet a couple of you over the course of the year. But again, my thanks and congratulations on serving along with 200,000 others as AmeriCorps VISTA members. Patrick, back to you.
Max, thank you very much. It's an unexpected pleasure, and I'm glad you could join us. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the next 5 weeks, and then we'll take a closer look at our agenda for today. So today is listed as day one as your first day of service. This webinar is part of the 5-week orientation to VISTA and your role in it.
So you've already completed the first part, the pre-service period, where you completed online coursework and onboarding forms. You've gotten lots of emails from us saying, hey, get this done. Come on, let's move this along. And we thank you so much for getting that done.
Because they clearly did. So for the next couple of weeks, your sponsoring organization will provide you with an on-site orientation and training. This training introduces you to the organization and the community where you'll be serving and dives deep into your VISTA assignment, which is essentially your job description.
And you'll also have some field work to do in your organization and in the community during those weeks.
Then 2 weeks from Wednesday on April 6th, we'll come back together for another session like this one. And by that I mean a webinar with a breakout session.
Yeah, and then on weeks 4 and 5, we're going to focus on poverty, both nationally and locally, and explore the foundations and context of your VISTA service.
Yeah, and then in week 5, you finish up with the orientation. Now, as for today's agenda, this webinar was designed to help you connect with your peers and the mission of the VISTA program, review the key terms and conditions of VISTA service, and identify people and resources that will help you during your VISTA year and beyond.
Yeah, and immediately after this webinar, you'll call into your individual breakout rooms. You'll hear from your course facilitator as well as representatives from our state offices who develop and work with your projects. In your breakout sessions, you'll review tasks and activities of your VISTA online orientation, affirm your commitment to VISTA, and take the oath of service.
And that's it.
And that's it.
then they're VISTAs. All right. But let's learn a little bit about all of you before we move on. Okay? Please let us know where you'll be serving in the chat panel. City, town, state, project sponsor.
Yeah, and when you do that, make sure that you send it to all participants. And please be sure to enter them in the chat panel, not the Q&A panel, further down the screen.
Right. So have at it, folks. Let's see.
Waco, Texas. Hey, that's where I'm from.
Woo-hoo.
That's where I'm from.
There's Austin, there's Little Rock, there's Dallas, Washington, Utah.
Another Austin, LA, Alaska. There's someone in Alaska.
All right. Eugene, Blue Jean, Eugene. Albuquerque. Wichita.
Yeah, a lot of Texas people in there.
More. Oh, there's a Portlandian. Big brothers, big sisters in Stevensville, Texas. Is that Stephen or Stephen?
Stephenville.
Stephenville.
Sort of with a V.
Gotcha. Appomattox Giraffe Laugh?
Man, I've seen that before.
Come on, that's
what a
not
funny
true.
name for what a silly name for a project. I'm sure they're doing great work, but Giraffe Laugh, love it.
All right.
Baylor University, y'all. Woo!
Is that part of its name, y'all woo?
Yeah, definitely. The Baylor University, y'all woo.
Great.
Institute of Technology and Design.
All right. All right, you people. We're going to move on now. Thank you for doing that. We know a little bit about you, but you may want to know a little bit about us and the program that you're about to join.
Yeah. So as we're getting to know one another, let's take a look at a few milestones in history. In the words of a few great men,
alas, they're all great men. They're men, and that's not by our design.
That have brought us to this moment of becoming a volunteer in service to America. So, about 100 years ago, 1910 to be exact, the American philosopher William James envisioned a non-military national service in his essay, The Moral Equivalent of War.
Instead of military conscription, I propose a conscription of the whole youthful population to form for a certain number of years part of an army enlisted against nature, and numerous other goods of the Commonwealth would follow. That's my old-timey voice.
That was a good old-timey, very Yosemite Sam.
Thank you. Slow
Yosemite. The injustice he referred to was the carnage of the Civil War, and his dream was to turn the passions, the power, the resources, and technology to developing a national infrastructure. That's roads, bridges, dams, the electrical grid.
Now, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was a student of James at Harvard and was one of the first elected leaders to apply James's concepts to public policy.
Yeah. Roosevelt first recruited 10,000 men from the New York's unemployment rolls into reforestation projects. Then, as president, he invoked the spirit of national service in the New Deal to lift the nation out of the Great Depression. Roosevelt created a virtual alphabet soup of programs. The CCC that restored our parks and supported the volunteers and their families.
The WPA that supported job creation in the sciences and arts and revitalized the economy.
And a large number of federally owned corporations, the TVA,
the SSA,
FDIC.
All of them, in each case, were established to help further the economic well-being of American citizens.
And we're sharing all this to say the CCC was transformed into AmeriCorps Intracle, which I was a part of, by President Bush in 1990.
Actually, 1994.
1994. And the umbrella organization under which we all serve, the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS as you'll commonly see it. CNCS is a federally owned corporation established by President Clinton with the mission
and by federally owned corporations like the TVA, or the TVA, the SSA, et cetera. And its mission, according to President Clinton, to provide opportunities for Americans of all ages and backgrounds to engage in service that address the nation's needs.
That was good in the beginning. It kind of tapered off.
It tapered off, but it wasn't a bad Clinton.
And of AmeriCorps, which Vista joined in 1990, Clinton asked,
young Americans to go to the streets to build America from the people point of view. That was good. You got it?
That was good.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's return to 1961 when President Kennedy established the Peace Corps and rejuvenated from the Depression the great idea of a corps of volunteers with a living allowance and training support. While creating the Peace Corps, Kennedy went on record to say,
the wisdom of this idea is that someday we'll bring it home to America.
Nice. Enter President Johnson, who does just that. LBJ created the Office of Economic Opportunity, sort of what the Corporation for National and Community Service is today. And within that office, established, among others, Senior Corps, Job Corps, Head Start, and the true bearer of the legacy, Volunteers in Service to America.
Our first volunteers were assigned, as the newspapers read back then, to the hollows of Appalachia, the slums of Hartford, Connecticut, and the camps of migrant farm workers in California.
Yep. So today, with over 200,000 alumni, 8,500 of you serving this year alone, in all 50 states and territories, we address economic equity in the fields of education, health, nutrition, finance, and disaster recovery.
Yeah. So on that first day, 50 years ago, President Johnson said to the Vistas then, which really remains true today,
"You have come to open the door of American opportunity to all of our people. Your pay, I'll do this one, you do the next one.
Got it.
Your pay will be low. The conditions of your labor will often be difficult, but you will have the satisfaction of leading a great national effort, and you will have the ultimate reward, which comes to those who serve their nation and who serve humankind."
This is your job to teach the skills which may lead to a more satisfying and more rewarding life. On your idealism and on your success rests much of our nation's hope.
He concluded in saying, "The initials of your organization spell VISTA. It is an appropriate name, for you will be opening up new vistas of hope for the poor, achievement for yourself, and greatness for your nation."
So, it is a pleasure to welcome you, and it is with great pride that I welcome you in this new undertaking.
So there's the history. So now, who are some of these 200,000 alumni, you may be wondering? The vast majority are about as famous as Calvin and me. Not exactly household names.
But George R.R. Martin, the author of Game of Thrones, served as a Vista.
He did. Rockefeller, Senator Rockefeller, that is.
Ray Magliozzi?
Magliacci.
Magliacci, sorry, I'm not Italian.
It's okay.
You know, his click and clack of car talk.
Right. Jack Garrity, CEO, Land O'Lakes, the butter man.
Congresswoman Gwen Moore.
Just a few of our 200,000. But if you're aiming to be famous because you served as a Vista, you may want to rethink that plan.
As for some of our measurable outcomes over the year 2015, Vistas are building the capacity of about 3,000 nonprofits and public agencies.
Yep. Vistas secured $222 million in cash and in-kind donations for those 3,000 sponsors. That's more than twice what Congress has given AmeriCorps Vista to run the entire program.
1.2 million community volunteers were recruited, trained, and assigned. That means for every Vista serving in 2015, he or she brought in another 154 volunteers to serve their clients directly.
Not bad.
Incredible.
Just one more statistic. The National Center for Children in Poverty estimates 16 million children in the U.S., about 1 in 5, live below the poverty line. Vistas served 2.4 million of those children in after-school programs, tutoring, and assistance in food security.
Impressive. So, the impact that you make this year is going to depend on your skill, your energy, and your passion. But it also depends on your community, your Vista project, and good old luck.
Good luck. So whether it's mobilizing volunteers, raising funds, or building partnerships, we hope you'll make a positive, lasting change for your sponsor and the community.
Yeah. As you take this first step today, please be clear about why you're here. Learn what your community and your sponsor are hoping for, and figure out what is within your grasp.
That's a tall order. Really learn what your community and sponsor are hoping for, and then figure out what's in your grasp.
Yeah.
Sounds easier said than done.
Yeah, so before we get to what we need from you, let's discuss what you need from us. There's a poll to the right of your screen where we'd like you to share the top 2 kinds of support that are important to you in the coming year. The poll is anonymous, so be frank and honest.
Okay, so let's open the poll. And as you can see, is it caring for my children? Someone please care for my children. Health care coverage, is it paying my utility bills? Again, someone please pay. Gaining skills to carry out my VAD? Let's see what people have to say. Oh, that's right, it's a poll. So look, everybody, vote, vote. Like Chicago.
Keep those votes coming.
Vote early and vote often. Usually it's a great silent majority who win in this deal, so vote.
Yeah. And it looks like the poll just closed, so while we're waiting on that to calculate, I want to say that, you probably know that VISTA offers a number of benefits to its members. So we need for you to, be clear about what you need so that we can point out what's available and let you know how to access it.
Yeah, really good point. So, let's see. And the answers are...
Oh, that's good timing.
It's perfect, isn't it? Making ends meet on the VISTA allowance seems to come in... Oh, no, it comes in second.
Close second to gaining skills to carry out your VISTA assignment.
Right. And really, I think that this reflects the two greatest challenges of VISTA service. One, how do I live on the pennies that you're giving me? Thank you very much. And then two, how do I actually do what I'm supposed to do in my VAD?
Yeah.
And what comes in after that?
Let's see.
Oh, no answer. I knew it. No answer. Yay.
Paying my utility bills.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That's sort of tied, with making ends meet on the VISTA allowance.
Yep, and then we've got healthcare coverage coming in and then student loans, all reflecting the state of America.
Someone in the chat says, staying sufficiently caffeinated.
Yeah.
Same. I feel you.
Talk about that. Okay, so let's move on then. Thank you very much for that. We're going to do our best to address these high-level needs, and then later on in the PSO blend, we'll be able to dig a little deeper into the details. So, just the benefits. This VISTA Campus tutorial, this one right here, covers all of your benefits. You probably breezed through it a couple of weeks ago, and you probably checked out the living allowance and saw that we're really pretty serious about the poverty thing. But you may also need to use a few other benefits or to double-check details. We built this as a reference tool. It's not a pop-in, pop-out, and never use it again. So go back when you need it, and go back as often as you need it.
Yeah. And there's also a few benefits that tend to generate a lot of questions, and those are the ones that we really want to review right now to make sure that you're getting it. So the first one is the living allowance. This is receive a living allowance payment every 2 weeks, which means about 26 payments in a year and not 24. If this is your first day as a VISTA, your first pay date will be April 8th.
By the way, we have quite a few people on the line who are technically training deferred, meaning they've already started their service. So, for example, those of you who started your service back, say, in late February, maybe February 22nd, then you should have received your first living allowance on the 11th of March.
March 11th.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you're not sure, you can check out your living allowance statements on my.americorps.gov, but we'll show you that in a second.
Right. All right. Now, you're paid through direct deposit. It's an electronic transaction, excuse me. So please make sure that you entered your bank account and your routing number correctly in MyAmericorps. Otherwise, you're not going to receive your payment on time.
Yeah, and we can't stress this enough. The routing number and account number is on your checks. So if you're confused or unsure, just call your bank and they'll tell you exactly what your account number and your routing number are.
Yep, I understand. Not everybody has checks nowadays. Also, look, the number that's on your debit card or your credit card is not your checking account or your routing number. So don't use that, please.
Oh, yeah, we've seen that. It's a headache.
Been there. All right. Yeah, in case you're wondering, and you may hate this, you pay federal taxes, and they're deducted from your living allowance.
Yeah. State taxes, however, are not deducted, but you need to determine your own level of responsibility for state taxes. We suggest that you check with your state's tax office to figure that out. Also, your living allowance is not a salary. You're not an employee of the federal government or your sponsor. So VISTA service does not qualify you for unemployment compensation after your service year.
Thank you for that. Okay, are we up to healthcare? Yes. Healthcare is an area where one size does not quite fit all. We all have different needs around healthcare. For example, this is my state of health.
Gets me every time. Every time.
We're going to give you an overview of the VISTA health benefits, but if you have questions and we don't get them today, please use the resources we'll provide a bit later. This is especially true for questions specific to your personal circumstances.
Yeah, the Affordable Care Act, or ACA, applies to everyone, including you as a VISTA member.
Yep. The ACA, also known as Obamacare, requires you to have insurance unless you're exempt. We'll talk about what we have for people who are exempt in just a moment.
And that moment being now. So most of you are required to have health insurance, and you probably do. If you do, then the VISTA program provides you with up to $6,850 to reimburse you for out-of-pocket expenses. These are things like co-pays, prescriptions, and deductibles. But the note is, you can't use the allowance to pay for the insurance itself.
Too bad. It's still $6,850. Not bad.
Not bad.
All right. For VISTAs who are exempt, we offer like a safety net health benefit plan. The safety net covers emergencies, some out-of-pocket expenses, prescriptions, and other basic medical expenses.
So you can only enroll in one of these benefits depending on whether you're exempt or whether you have insurance. In the next week or so, the International Medical Group, or IMG, they're going to send you an email with details on how to enroll online and choose the right benefit.
Look, you've got to enroll within 30 days of starting service. It's not automatic. And let me drive home to those of you who started service before today, especially if you started around late February, you've only got a handful of hours to get that in, so please do so.
Yeah, if you have a question about the health benefits and which one you qualify for, contact IMG and one of their representatives will help.
Thank you.
Or I guess you can always call the VMSU also and they'll point you in the right direction.
Right. So they'll probably point you back to IMG, but you can always go to the VMSU.
That is the right direction.
All right. So if you already receive public assistance, such as TANF or LIHEAP, your living allowance or any other payments from us should not change the level of assistance you receive.
Oh, but just as an aside, those of you who indicated in the poll that you could use help with your utility bills, you're going to want to check out LIHEAP, and that stands for Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. You'll also find tips on the VISTA Campus Forum, things like Recipes 101, housing, and the dollar store.
Yep. So your living allowance should not be factored into your current public assistance or even any new public assistance benefits when they determine the level of benefits you should receive. We refer to this as income disregard.
The exception to this provision is SNAP, or food stamps. If you enroll in SNAP now or any time during your service year, your living allowance and other VISTA payments will be counted as income in calculating your eligibility.
Weird, but here's the other weird part of it. If you were already receiving SNAP, that is prior to enrolling in the VISTA program, your benefit is unchanged.
Yeah. So just remember that public benefits are managed by state and local entities. CNCS has no authority over them, so you'll want to speak with a caseworker for advice.
That's really dodging the bullet. That's all I can say, Calvin. All right.
Don't blame me.
Let's talk about the portal for a second. So soon after you officially start, which for many of you is today, you'll be able to print a letter citing the authority for income disregard from your home page in myAmericorps.gov.
Yeah. By the way, your monthly living allowance statements are not mailed to you, but they're posted there instead. You can access your W-2, your yearly wage statement, and your 1099 miscellaneous form for filing taxes here.
Right. And then lastly, if you selected the Education Award, you'll also have a My Education Award link. This is where you submit loan forbearance requests, later submit Education Award and interest accrual payment requests, and keep track of the status of them. But let's talk some more about that now.
All right, this is a good section. This is an important one. Everyone, has lots of questions about the end-of-service benefit. So after successfully completing your service, you're eligible for one of two benefits, the Education Award or the cash stipend. You receive one of these end-of-service benefits in addition to your biweekly living allowance.
You are really Diamond Jim Brady. The Education Award. Look, it can be used to pay federal loans, not private loans, or to pay for education at any Title IV institution, which is an institution that accepts federal funds.
Yeah, we have a really wonderful Education Award tutorial on the Vista campus that can give you a whole lot more information about this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we also have another site that reflects what institutions match the Education Award. The Ed Award's on the campus, vistacampus.gov, and the Ed Award match is on nationalservice.gov, a URL too long to give you right here, but do a search on National Service and you'll find it.
Yeah, that's a really great benefit. I really recommend checking that out. That's a really good way to maximize your Education Award.
Agreed.
So let's go on to the cash stipend. The cash stipend is paid out via direct deposit at the very end of your service. The cash stipend is taxable in the calendar year that it's received. So if you finish your service next year, you'll be taxed on that cash stipend for tax year 2017.
Good math skills there. Also, look, with your Ed Award, it's also taxed, but it's taxed the year that you use the funds from the Ed Award. If you're unsure what benefit to choose, and by that I mean the Ed Award or the cash stipend, I suggest that you select the Education Award because you'll have to the end of the 10th month of your service year to switch to the cash stipend.
Yeah, just to be very, very clear on that point, if you select the stipend and you're activated with the stipend, you cannot switch to the Education Award.
But you can the other way around.
Yeah, but if you get the Education Award, you have 10 months to change to the stipend.
Got it. And we're giving folks, in case this is coming as a surprise and shock to you, you've got 24 hours to go back into the portal and choose your end of service or change your end of service if you want to.
Yep.
All right, let's move on.
All right. So now we got loan forbearance and deferment. So there's ways that you can postpone repayment of student loans during your service year or reduce the amount of your monthly loan payments. I'll mention them here and show you where you can dive into the details.
Look, this, after all these years, still drives me crazy. And look, when I hear the word forbearance, this is what I see. Forbear and ants. So I looked this up. Forbear means to pardon or forgive, as in a debt. So go for it, Calvin.
Yeah, so if you chose the Education Award, you can place your federally backed student loans in National Service Forbearance, which means that you don't make monthly loan payments during your service year. And if you complete your term, the National Service Trust will pay the accrued interest for the year. And you can apply for both of these through the MyAmeriCorps portal at my.americorps.gov.
Okay, I appreciate that. So to forbear a loan means, in this case, the government will forgive your loan for 1 year and pay your interest as well.
Yeah, they'll postpone it for 1 year, and then they'll pay the interest as accrued over that year.
Yep, and that's where I get confused with deferment, because deferment means to postpone or to put off until a later date. So if you select the end of service stipend or you have private loans, you can request loan deferment by applying to your lender. Economic hardship is the driving factor for deferment.
Yeah, and for those with federally subsidized loans, if you took the stipend, the Department of Education might pay the accrued interest. Check with your lender or the Department of Education, because not all lenders offer deferment.
Right. So I hesitate because this can get confusing, but let's mention 2 more programs to consider to help people manage their student loans.
Yeah, these are 2 things that I personally use, so I'd love to talk about them.
Okay.
The first one being income-based repayment. So income-based repayment is going to adjust your monthly payments based on your income. As a Vista, since you don't make very much, your payments could be as low as $0. While it won't reduce the amount that you ultimately have to pay back, it will shrink your monthly payments to a manageable amount during your service year.
Okay. The other strategy is public service loan forgiveness program. If you have federal direct loans, and if you work for a nonprofit, a government organization, or an educational institution for 10 years, then the balance on your federal loan is forgiven. The catch to this, you have to make 120 on-time loan payments during those 10 years. But this, along with the income-based repayment plan, is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, definitely. And like Patrick said, we just gave you a lot of information. There's details on nationalservice.gov/resources/edaward. And we also have a webinar coming up on April 11th that deals directly with student loans and how to manage them. We're really going to dive deep into all of these programs, into forbearance, into deferment, and sort of what this all means, and how to use all of this in conjunction with each other to help you make the best decisions about your student loans.
Nicely done. That's April 11th.
April 11th.
Tune in, folks. Look, there's a lot of information about your benefits with all the details we can address here on the Vista campus. And there's a whole lot more.
Yeah, but for the time being, let's just point out that the member handbook is the best reference tool for Vista policy, terms, conditions, and benefits. It's the most accessed resource on the campus for good reason, and that really says something about it.
Yeah, it does. And as for the other resources and courses that are available on campus, we're going to talk more about them on April 6th. So till then, feel very welcome to come and explore the Vista campus.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, terms and conditions.
Terms and conditions.
Yeah.
So we know that you accepted the terms and conditions because you're listening to this webinar right now. But unlike your cell phone carrier, we really want you to understand them.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to have a little fun and reviewing these. There's a poll to the right of the screen. And again, 3 questions. Wrong answers deliver a slight shock, and right answers increase your living allowance by $1.
I don't think that's true, but this is all for fun and learning. So as you can see, we've got 3 true-false questions. The first one being, I can voice my political opinion using social media where I'm identified as an AmeriCorps member. And
yes. The next one, I can demonstrate in a political rally.
Third question, I can ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on my own time and I'm not identified as a Vista.
All right, so don't be afraid to answer these. And by the way, we're not going to track you down and pull you out of service if you get it wrong, okay? These are really tricky questions, especially, look, the government is a dinosaur, and when it comes to social media, it just gropes its way through trying to figure out the law. So we're here to give you a hand.
Yeah, and these are especially important because this is a big election year. It's really important for people to know, what they can and can't do.
All right. So while they're answering and the poll is doing its thing, why don't we just mosey along and pull up the answers?
Right.
Okay.
Question 1. Question 1, I can voice my political opinion using social media where I'm identified as an AmeriCorps member. Answer, you can voice political opinions on social media. That's on your own time, but not at your site or using any of the equipment at your site, which includes the Wi-Fi network.
That's the weird part.
That is the weird part. But you must keep your political action limited to your off-duty hours.
Right. And look, rule of thumb, you just can't represent yourself as a spokesperson for AmeriCorps, for VISTA, for CNCS, or your sponsor.
Yeah. The second question, I can demonstrate in a political rally. Looks like we got lots of true answers.
Yeah, and the answer is yeah. Those who answered true, you are right. Look, you're joining VISTA service. You're not going to a Russian gulag in Kazakhstan. So we want you to have all the rights of a citizen when it comes to your political rights. However, you can't do it when you are representing VISTA. Go to a political rally, you can't do it in a T-shirt. And we're not recommending that you go naked from the waist up. Basically, what we're saying is make it very clear when you are representing yourself and when you're representing VISTA.
Definitely. Right. That makes all the difference.
Yep. What's the last one? Raising funds in support of an issue?
Yeah, our last one is I can ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on my own time and I'm not identified as a VISTA.
And the answer is false. So I got you folks who said true, which the majority thought. I know it's weird. So this is what you got to parse out. You can raise funds in support of an issue. Save the whale, save the planet, save Triano. You can do all that. But you can't be identified as a VISTA when you're doing that, or you can't represent yourself as a VISTA while you're doing that. But when it comes to a partisan political candidate, you cannot at any time during your VISTA year raise money on their behalf.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's off-duty or at home or while not identified as a VISTA. The Hatch Act prohibits all fundraising for partisan political candidates.
Okay, weird as that is, that's the way it works. All right, let's try the next question. True or false? I can join my colleagues in prayer at my service site. True or false? Come on, dig in there. Let's see how well these online courses, really educated you. Now, it can't take them that long to actually answer it.
I can't. It's one question.
It's one question.
One question.
So maybe we can just mosey into the answer while the poll lets us know how they're doing.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so.
The answer, yes, you can, but you can't proselytize. That is, try to persuade them to join you in your religion or ask people to pray with you.
Yep.
Also, your VAD cannot ask you to pray, but you are free to practice your religion.
There it is. There is the rule of thumb. You can practice your religion. You just can't ask other people to practice your religion with you.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fair
what do
enough.
We got?
How do we do? False. False, really? No, it's a little lighter. I know we are the government, but this is one case where you're allowed to practice your religion, and you can practice your religion. For example, if you're a practicing Muslim and you need to pray while at your site, then it's perfectly appropriate for you to pray, and it's even appropriate for you to ask your sponsor for some support of where you might be able to pray. Okay, shall we try the next one?
We shall. Let's do it. Next question is, I can have outside employment or earn additional income while serving as a VISTA member.
It's my favorite question. Your colleague actually thought that outside employment meant you could only work outside while you're a VISTA. Yeah.
Hey, that's logical thinking.
Logical, maybe not
Purely
terribly
logical.
bright, but logical. Okay, so true or false? You can have outside employment or earn additional income.
I think everyone's going to get this one right. I saw some chatter in the chat box about this earlier.
Did you? Okay, let's see. And the answer is, answer man, what do you got?
Yes, you can have outside employment or earn additional income. So while you are allowed to have outside employment, there's a few really important key policies to keep in mind.
And I think that they're really easy to keep them in mind.
I think so. They're pretty easy policies to remember.
VISTA service comes first. Any conflict, VISTA trumps employment.
Yeah. You cannot be an employee of or contractor for the sponsor or project where you're serving.
Fair enough. That's a sort of conflict of interest kind of thing. It looks bad. Here's another thing. Your job needs to be legal. Wow.
Legal.
Yeah, so, you know, there may be issues, say, in Colorado, in Oregon, in Washington, there may be some issues there. Nevada, another place where there may be issues.
Hazy legal ground.
And let's try to keep it legal from the federal point of view.
Federally legal employment.
That's all we're going to say about that.
And last one, if work does interfere with your VISTA assignment, you may be asked to either end your employment or end your VISTA service. We may make you choose between one or the other.
Right, right. And hopefully you'll make the right choice.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the Quizarino. Let's talk about criminal history checks, shall we?
Let's talk about it.
All right.
So one of the terms of your VISTA service is that you need to undergo a criminal history check. We do this to protect the community that you're serving in and the volunteers that we work with.
Right. So there are two convictions that automatically disqualify a person from VISTA service. One is any violence against a minor, and the other is any sexual offense. Now, in the case of sexual offenses, they usually are recorded in the National Sex Offenders Public Registry. We can attest that none of you are on that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be on this call right now.
Right. And there's two other conditions that may not necessarily disqualify you, but they could be an issue. One of those being that you're on probation or parole or facing charges. And the second one is that you're failed to disclose your criminal history.
Yeah, yeah. So we're talking about this for two reasons. First, you need to get fingerprinted as part of the criminal history check. So your supervisor is going to provide you with fingerprint cards and instructions for getting the prints taken and where to send them to us here in Washington.
Yeah, and you have a few weeks to get them in, but please don't wait till the last minute. We really want to get those in, get them processed, and get you cleared as fast as we can. The second thing is that when you applied, we asked you if you've ever been convicted of a crime. And while you may not have disclosed everything, you know, we need everything, not just, you know, in the last 10 years, we're talking everything.
Everything. We're talking about everything.
Everything, just disclose it.
So that means a whole lifetime.
Yeah.
It means if you thought a DUI was a minor traffic violation, you need to disclose that because it's not.
Yeah.
And here's a really weird one. If you were told that it would be expunged, if really what the court was telling you is that you have the opportunity to make sure that that criminal offense is expunged, and you have to go through some paperwork in order to have it expunged. It doesn't automatically happen. So it comes as a surprise to many of our VISTAs that when we run the FBI report, those expunged activities or charges were not exactly expunged.
No. So if you fail to disclose any conviction, even if you thought that it was expunged, fill out the criminal history questionnaire that's included with the fingerprint cards and send it in as instructed. If you have a string of arrests where charges were dropped, it'd be really appreciated if you listed those as well.
Yeah, because look, we're looking for patterns of behavior. So if you've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 convictions that are similar, whether it's DUI or perhaps it's petty theft, what we're looking for is both the disclosure as well as proof that that pattern of behavior has been broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so whenever the FBI report comes back, it'll be compared to your disclosures in the application on the form, If everything aligns, you're not going to hear from us.
That's right.
And you only hear from us if we need more information.
Yep. So in this case, no news is good news.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI reports come back pretty quickly. So you get the fingerprints to us, we get them out to the FBI. Within weeks, we should be done with that process.
Yep.
All right. So in this case, I just want to say, honesty is definitely the best policy. Just disclose if you haven't.
Yeah.
All right.
If you think it's not that big of a deal, it may not be. Just disclose it.
Don't trust us. Just talk to us. All right. Let's move on about where to get support while serving. So far, we've talked about the campus, the Vista campus. We talked about IMG for health. And we talked about nationalservice.gov for a number of things. But we need to point out a few more sources.
Yeah, so your supervisor should be your first contact for any questions related to your VAD or your workplace. If your project has a Vista leader, and keep in mind that not all projects do, he or she can be a resource as well.
Right. So you're saying then the first person to turn to is my supervisor.
Correct. Yeah, that should be the first person that you go to with any issues, any questions that you might have.
Gotcha. Then the corporation has representatives in every state and territory working in the corporation state offices. Like we said earlier, you'll meet some of those representatives in the breakout sessions that immediately follow this plenary.
Yeah, they're very easy to get in touch with. If you're serving in Texas, tx@cns.gov. If you're serving in Florida, fl@cns.gov. Very easy email addresses to remember.
And these are the folks that I would turn to if, after having gone to my supervisor, having spoken to my leader, and I still have questions, or I'm still confused, that's who we turn to.
Yeah, definitely.
Gotcha.
Another resource is the Vista Member Support Unit, or the VMSU. You can get to them through the hotline, and that's who you call about benefits, help with myAmericorps.gov, or just when you're in doubt and you really don't know where to turn, those guys can put you right in the right direction.
Perfect. Now look, all of this information, the information that we just gave you and this webinar can be found on the Vista campus. Search under support and it'll pop up, and I suggest you keep it where you can find it.
Yeah.
All right. It's that evaluation time.
Evaluation time.
Look, the PSO blend is actually in a pilot phase, so you lucky few are part of an evaluation process. We're asking for your feedback, your immediate feedback relative to this webinar, but we're also going to be evaluating the entire 5 weeks. And we want to know, is this effective? Where is it effective? Where is it not so effective? Where are the sexy points? Where are the really dull ones?
Yeah, so as you'll see, that poll on the right side, as Patrick said, yeah, if you would take a second and let us know what you think.
Yep.
Time check, we're at 4:53. We really want to get to some questions, so we want to take some questions. Let's check in.
Okay, so let's see. How do we ask questions? There's one, and no, don't ask your supervisor, but rather go to the Q&A panel, located to the right of your screen, pop your question in there, and we have folks behind the scenes who are monitoring. They'll either answer it immediately or they'll queue it up for us. Also, Kim, can we open the lines for folks and folks follow Kim's directions?
Thank you. At this time, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *1, and please record your name when prompted. If you'd like to withdraw the question, you may press *2. Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *1, and please record your name when prompted.
Okay, folks, don't be shy.
We love hearing those voices, almost as much as you love hearing ours, I'm sure.
No, that goes without saying. And Jessica, I'm looking over to you to say, are there any questions that you see queued up while we're waiting for the callers?
Yeah, so there's one, it's just a clarifying question. So if someone doesn't have a criminal history, they don't need to fill out the form. You don't need them to write none on it, like they don't need to submit that. They just need to submit their fingerprints.
That's right. Just send us your fingerprints.
Great.
Yep, good question. Kim, anyone on the line?
Yes, our first question comes from Christina. Your line is open.
Hi, what percent of the education award will be taxed?
Did you, we sort of got cut off in the beginning of your question. Did you ask whether it's true that your education award will be taxed?
No, I just wanted to ask what percent of the education award will be taxed.
Yeah, that's an easy question. So the education award is taxed in the amount that you use it and the year that you use it. So if you use the entire education award next year, you'll be taxed on the full amount. If you spread it out and you make payments throughout the year, or you make one payment, you're only taxed on that amount that you spent in that year that you spent it.
And the percentage of the tax is, of course, based upon the W-4 and how many exemptions there are and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and your tax liability, all that good stuff.
All that good stuff. Does that help, Christina?
Yes, thank you.
You bet. Kim, anyone else?
Yes, our next question comes from Nora. Your line is open.
Nora.
Hi,
yeah.
I started in February, the end of February, and I just checked my health care benefits, and it says that I don't have a account open anymore. Is that already closed for folks that started in February?
It is, like, honestly, it is within a day of when you had to do it. So let's see. Shall we direct her to the VMSU?
I believe so. And if you are needing to sign up for a health care benefit, you can apply for an extension with IMG.
Sure.
But you'll need to get in touch with them, and the VMSU is definitely going to be the best resource to help you get in touch with them.
That's what I'm thinking as well. So go to the hotline, get in touch with the VMSU, and say, oops, I missed it by maybe about 24 hours. Can you help me out?
Okay, yeah, I thought that it said 60 days, but maybe.
Nope, 30.
Okay.
Oh, ye procrastinator. 30, Nora.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. And our next person comes from Gina Evans. Your line is open.
Hello. First of all, the internet went down right when you guys started the first poll, so I haven't got to participate at all in any of your question and answers. So I apologize for that.
Oh, do you want to give us your answers now, and we'll test you, or what?
Not in front of everyone, please. It also happened from there's another Vista in this office, Melissa Smoot. So we really wanted to participate, but we kind of weren't able to. Just want to let you know.
I'm really sorry. Has it come up at all, or are you still internetless?
Internetless, yes.
That's an
uncomfortable position.
Yeah, so, but I was hoping you could repeat kind of what you said. I was kind of going through panic mode at one point.
Don't worry. You know what? All of this has been recorded. So you'll be able to go onto the campus, I'd say in about a week, and we'll send you an email when it's up there. So that'll be one help. And now I'm going to answer your question.
Can you touch on what you do with what your options are for a private loan instead of a federal loan?
Yeah, it's really confusing, isn't it? With private loans, you can go for deferral.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what you need to do is go to your lender and tell your lender that due to economic hardship, you are asking for a deferral. And it's really up to the lender to say, yes, I understand. And look, you've got a great story. You pluck at his heartstrings, you tell him you're a Vista, you're serving for a year in an anti-poverty program, and you're making pennies a day, and you should have good luck.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Toria. Your line is open.
Toria.
Victoria or just Toria?
I think it's Toria.
Victoria Castillo, because I think there's two Victorias. I'm the Merced Vista, and my question is for folks who are using the income disregard. As far as housing and Section 8, how can we utilize that as well with them? Because it doesn't state that on the form, and when I read the fine print, I did not see that listed.
Just to be clear and not to pry into your personal affairs, but let's assume that you currently have Section 8 housing.
Yes.
Then it applies to your Section 8 housing as well. So use that letter, follow through, and if there are any problems, then you'll raise it up through the ranks, let your supervisor know, but it's essentially going to have to go to either your state office or the VMSU, and then we'll raise it with the lawyers here.
Okay, great. I appreciate that.
Of course. How are we doing on time? We're right at time.
5 o'clock.
Kim, I hate to cut people off, and I hope there aren't too many people in queue because I love hearing from them. But there are people waiting in the breakout rooms to meet everybody on this plenary. And so we're going to have to stop the questions and direct people to those breakouts.
That's fine.
So, of course, my screen went blank.
Yeah. Advance our slides for us. The chart that you're going to see, these are the call-in numbers for the breakouts. So you've previously received an email this morning, actually, with your breakout group and instructions for logging in to your online classrooms so that you can participate in the chat room while you're on the phone.
Great.
Yeah. So what we're going to ask you to do is to hang up now and call into the conference call number for your breakout session as shown on the screen. Then log into the chat room. We'll leave the webinar running with this slide on screen so that you have some easy reference.
And people who are maybe confused about what breakouts are in, they should have gotten it in an email prior to this, and Jessica's making it clear. She's pointing to herself saying, yes, she sent it out and highlighted, I believe, your breakout group. So if you're at a loss, check your email from Jessica Birch. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I really enjoyed this time, and I'm looking forward to talking to you on, when was it, April 6th?
April 6th is your next webinar.
All right. Enjoy the on-site orientation and training. It's really cool. The field work, I think, will be helpful as you go through that process.
And hopefully enjoyable.
It should be fun. And all learning should be fun. That's my philosophy. I wish you a great year of service. I'm grateful to you for your motivation to serve. And we'll talk to you in a few weeks.
I guess that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.